Good evening, councillors, Mr CEO, members of staff, ladies and gentlemen of the public gallery and other members. The blessing will be read by Councillor MacDonald tonight. May you please take a seat.
I say a prayer to the many families in the city of Gosnells who are struggling to cope with the real-life challenges such as rising cost of living, homelessness and loneliness, and the impacts of increasing crime rates in parts of our city. I offer a prayer of hope, safety and faith for these families and ask the Lord to watch over them and keep them safe. Amen.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Welcome to the council meeting of the 8th of October 2024. I now declare the meeting open at 7 p.m. We have no visitors tonight, and I will read the disclaimer. The disclaimer reads, members of the public are cautioned against taking any action on council decisions on items in which they may have an interest until such time as they have seen a copy of the minutes of the meeting or have been advised in writing by the city staff. Live streaming, please note that all council meetings are digitally recorded and live streaming on the city's YouTube channel, except for confidential agenda items, during which time the live streaming will be temporarily suspended. I would also like to acknowledge the Whadjuk Noongar people, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, as the traditional owners and custodians of the land in which we are meeting tonight. We pay our respects to them and their cultures and to elders past, present and emerging. That now takes us to item 2, the record of attendance. Tonight we have an apology from Councillor Dalton, and Mayor Teresa Lyons is seeking a leave of absence later in the agenda. We'll now move to item 3, disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures of interest to be declared? No disclosures of interest. Oh, sorry. We've got CEO has a disclosure of interest, Ian Cowie, in relation to a direct financial interest in relation to item about the performance review. Thank you. Okay, so we've got that one disclosure of interest. So that takes us to item 4, announcements of the presiding member, and there are no announcements tonight. So we'll now move to item 5, reports of delegates. So we'll go around the room. Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As councillors are aware, earlier this year the city launched its Disability Access and Inclusion Plan for 2024 to 2028. So it was my privilege last month to attend the National Disability Summit to identify possibilities that might add value to our local plan, with a goal to keep improving the systems, services and accessibility provided to persons with a disability. During the summit, I became aware that the federal government provides resources that assist NDIS providers and NDIS participants get ready for, manage and recover from fires, floods and pandemics, etc. Whilst as a local government, the City of Gosnells is not an NDIS provider, specific reference and direction of this material might be a suitable inclusion in the 2024-28 date to cover protocols and response times in times of emergencies which undoubtedly impact people in our city who have disabilities, particularly with the ever-present threat of bushfires in some parts of our city. I also learned the federal government National Relay Service, which is a phone solution for people who are hard of hearing, deaf or who have speech communication difficulties. So one of the commitments in the city's new Disability Access and Inclusion Plan is to establish a one-stop shop on the city's website for information on access and inclusion initiatives, translation support and other useful resources. So it's envisaged that this one-stop shop will be easily accessible on the homepage of the city's website and will be able to house information and links such as the National Relay Services and NDIS resources page. Finally, I was approached by one speaker at the summit about whether or not the City of Gosnells would be interested in jointly hosting a disability-themed expo in the city to raise awareness and educate. and I've requested some further detail about this, and I'm awaiting for a response on that. And thank you to Director Blake for providing us with some feedback in relation to the date. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Are there any other reports from delegates? No, thank you. That now brings us to item 6, question time for the public and receiving of public statements. So tonight we have no public questions or public statements, so we'll move on from that item. So the first item is confirmation of minutes. May I seek a mover, Councillor Baines, and a seconder, Councillor Lloyd. So tonight we'll vote by show of hands. We've got a bit of a technical difficulty, so if you support that, please raise your hand. So that is unanimously carried. Thank you. We'll now move to item 8, receiving of petitions and presentations. Do any elected members have any petitions or presentations? No? Thank you. We'll now move to item 9, applications for leave of absence. So I have one application for leave of absence, which reads, I, Mayor Theresa Lyons, seek leave of absence for council for the period 8th of the 10th, 2024 to the 10th of the 10th, 2024, which includes the following council meeting, the 8th of the 10th, 2024, which is today, as she is attending an interstate meeting in capacity as the National Growth Areas Alliance Acting Chair. May I seek a mover? Councillor Abetz, and a seconder, Councillor Islam. Thank you. And we'll now go to the vote. Please raise your hands if you're in support. So that's unanimously carried. Thank you. Okay, item 10 now is questions of which due notice has been given, and we have not received any. So we'll move to item 11, items brought forward for the convenience of those in the public gallery, and we do not have any items to be brought forward tonight. Item 12, reports of committee meetings. We have nil, so that brings us to item 13, the reports. So the first item on the agenda tonight is item 13.1.1, which is the Welgers electoral advocacy position. May I seek a mover for that? We got Councillor Adams moving and a seconder, Councillor Abetz. So for this item, we've got 6 different recommendations. So what I will ask now is that a councillor moves a recommendation for item 1 on participation. Councillor Dewhurst.
Thanks very much. I'll get the ball rolling. I'm using my phone tonight because I forgot my laptop and whatever else I'm supposed to use.
No problem.
So I also want to put a recommendation up for number B for that. The sector supports compulsory voting at local government elections.
Thank you. We've got a seconder on that. So would anyone like to speak to that? Councillor Abetz?
Yeah. Madam Deputy Mayor, I'm not sure that I would support compulsory voting for local government elections because people need to take a level of interest, and we have enough difficulty in getting sufficient interest in state and federal elections where voting is compulsory, and I'm just not sure that it's all that helpful to make it compulsory. So I would be supportive of A rather than B, but I wouldn't be too upset if it went the other way.
Councillor Good?
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Williamson. I am in supportive of A, that the sector continues to support voluntary voting at local government elections. My thinking was similar to Councillor Betts in terms of it's hard enough to get people interested, but if you've got roughly 30% interested, matter of fact, when I first started it was at 21%, but my key thinking is they say it's compulsory to vote at federal and state, and actually it's not. It's compulsory to turn up to tick your name off, then you can walk out. You don't actually have to physically vote, so therefore why make people do something? So I'm sticking to A, thank you.
Thank you. So, Councillor Good, you've spoken against B, but we're still debating on B. Would anyone else like to speak on B before Councillor Dewhurst finishes?
Thanks very much. I certainly won't lose any sleep, whether it be at A or B. But the way I was thinking is that it would be nice for those people out there who throw continuous crap at council about not doing this, not doing that. Well, let's give them a voice then. This is an opportunity for them to voice. And if someone's going to lose 50, $100 from their pocket, you probably get a 75, 80% turnout. So at least it's a true representation of our community to vote. That's the only reason I'm there. But again, I don't lose sleep on this. It doesn't matter.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. So we'll now go and vote. Please raise your hand if you support option B, compulsory voting. So we've got Councillor Dewhurst in support and, yeah, how many do I need to read all of it?
I think you can just say that means we'll put B down as our recommendation for item 1.
So we'll put A down as our recommendation.
Yeah.
Yep, so we'll support voluntary. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move to number 2, the terms of office. Can I have a councillor put forward a suggestion? A. So Councillor Abetz has suggested A. We've got a seconder of the whole thing. Okay, does anyone want to speak in support of A? Councillor Abetz?
Just very briefly, I think for the sake of continuity, it's good to have 6 or whatever number of half the councillors continuing on for 2 years. It just gives that historic knowledge, which I think is really valuable, and it also gives a bit more stability. So I think it's served us well, and I'd like to stick with it.
Thank you, Councillor Abetz. Would anyone else like to speak? Councillor Good?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Williamson. I will speak in favour of B, 4-year terms on all-in, all-out basis. I originally was always supportive of a 2-year spill, but my thinking now is a case of state and federal parliaments has always been all-in, all-out. Every 2 years, the sheer level of cost of running elections. The reality is, with 13 people on, I'd suggest probably 4 or 5 or 6 people would arguably be elected anyway. And an all-in, all-out basis, the key issue before was the fact that most of us are doing this on a part-time basis. We actually have jobs. So it was always harder to pick it up and learn. But quite frankly, I can name you a number of people, including the current Lord Mayor of Perth, and who came in, becomes Lord Mayor in one day. So you could argue that you could do that way. So for the sake of actually reducing costs, I argue that you could easily do a 4-year term and all in, all out. So I'm just putting it out there. But as Councillor Dewhurst said before, I wouldn't lose sleep over it either. So there you go.
Thank you, Councillor Good. Would any other councillor like to speak on this item? No? Okay, so we'll go to the vote. So Councillor Abetz put forward option A with the split. Could you please raise your hand if you support option A? So that has been supported. Option A, 10-1. So that now brings us to the third recommendation on voting methods. May I have a councillor put forward a recommendation? Councillor Good?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Williamson. I am actually supporting first past the post, so 3A, please.
Thank you, Councillor Good. Would anybody like to speak on this item? Councillor Abetz?
I support the first past the post, but the second part of that statement says, if optional preferential voting remains as the primary method of voting, the sector supports the removal of the proportional part of the voting method for general elections. And I think that would be a very detrimental aspect, because if you have, say, one very popular person, they get 90% of the vote, then the other 5 people could be elected with just 2% of the people actually supporting them. We don't want that to happen. That's why in the Senate, where you have multiple people elected, or in the Legislative Council, you have that proportional representation or proportional preferential voting, so that if a person has more than a quota, that the surplus actually the surplus votes at less than number 2 votes go to other candidates in a diminished proportion. It's a bit more complex. It's more complex, but I think it's necessary when you have multiple candidates to be elected. But for local government, I do prefer first past the post, so I do support A, although I'd like to scrub out the second bit.
Okay, so I've just had a suggestion from the CEO. What's in the report as the 2 options is exactly how it's come from Welga, but what we can do is split out, if first past the post isn't supported, then we could have the optional preferential voting remove that section that you're unhappy with. So what we'll do is we'll have A as supports the first past the post as preferential voting with the removal of that next sentence. B is as it reads in the report, and then C will be if optional preferential voting is supported, then that remains, that sentence will come by itself. Okay, so at the moment we have A that we're discussing. Would anybody else like to speak on that? No? Councillor Islam?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm in support of option B, it's purely for a couple of reasons. One is be consistent with the state and federal election. And secondly is we just changed this method 2 years ago. Why do we change this back? And it will confuse our voters as well. So I will strongly encourage my fellow councillors to support option B, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Islam. Would anybody else like to speak on it? No? Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go vote for option A with that first sentence, the second sentence removed. So if you're in support of option A, please raise your hand. So that has been carried. We have 3 opposed. Thank you. So that will now take us to item 4, recommendation 4, the internal elections. Can I have a councillor have a suggestion for this option, this item? We've got an A or a B. Councillor Baines, option A. Would you like to speak on option A? No. Would anybody else like to speak on option A? No? Okay, so we'll go to the vote. If you support option A, please raise your hand. So that's unanimously carried. Oh, Saiful? No? Councillor Islam is opposed. And Councillor Lloyd is opposed. Sorry, I missed that. So that's 9-2. Number 5 is voting accessibility. Can I have a councillor raise a suggestion, A, B or C? Councillor Dewhurst?
Yeah, I'm just going to suggest A, B and C.
A, B and C? Can we? Yeah. Yep. Okay, we'll have a D, which is A, B and C.
Well, yeah.
Yeah?
All of the above.
All of the above? Okay, D's all of the above. Would anybody like to speak on this?
Sorry about speaking every time. My concern with electronic voting is that I don't believe that has sufficient confidence in the public. The electronic voting, we saw what happened in the United States with the presidential election, where people made all sorts of accusations, false or true, who knows, about rigging and people being able to hack into systems. I think at this point in time, I doubt whether people have sufficient confidence in the integrity of an electronic voting system in this country. So I would be, I'm very happy with the postal voting and in-person voting, which is the system we've been having, where people get the ballot papers posted out to them. So in a sense, everybody gets it. They can then fill it in if they wish and send it back in, or they can go in person. So I would prefer just B and C. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Betts. Councillor Good, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Williamson. Look, I'm in support of D, all of the above. I understand Councillor Betts's views on that point about electronic, but one thing I have noticed in recent times, and particularly the last, I guess probably 2 to 3 years, there's a lot of two-factor, multi-factor identity stuff which is done, and generally speaking, you can log on to most systems and it's requiring passwords and logins and IDs and even facial ID. I've got things on my phone where my face does it. So as the electronic systems develop more and more, there'll be quite good sophisticated systems to make sure that you, the voter, are it. Having said that, we all know no system is foolproof. Identity theft can happen, does happen. I'm aware of it, but really aware of it for the camera. But there you go. So I'm just saying, as they get better, things will hopefully make it easier. So if you don't have to go to the post office, don't have to go into a polling station, it'd be good to be able to do it electronically. And for those who can't travel, it's just another way of doing it. Hopefully the systems will be up to speed soon and it'll come out. But I echo your comments and understand them. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Good. Would anybody else like to speak on this? Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm just thinking A and C, as a matter of fact, because, and I say that just in terms of the expense of postal voting. So if we had 2 options for voters, in electronic or in person, then we would save the city a hell of a lot of money by not having the necessity for postal voting, possibly.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Would anybody else like to speak? Councillor Dewhurst? You're closed. I think we had Councillor Betts, was it? It was Councillor Dewhurst? Yeah, you did all. Yep, okay, Councillor Dewhurst.
I can certainly hear your concerns, but we've certainly got enough robust systems currently. Banks are using it very well. The only reason you get identity theft, banking fraud, is through identity theft. So, and people clicking on links that they shouldn't click on. So I'm a D supporter, but I certainly hear Councillor McDonald. It does make total sense. I'm sort of looking at the next 5 years where we have to transition people from electronic, postal, coming in, and then after that, we couldn't just go cold turkey with no postal votes, because I think we'd have absolute mayhem and confusion out there. So certainly look at eventually A and C, you know, in the future after bringing the 3 in. So the reason I'm going for D is because we obviously need a transition period.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. Okay, so we will vote on D, all of the above. If you support all of the above, could you please raise your hand? So we have 10 to 1. Thank you. Okay, so we have the final one. Recommendation 6, the method of election of the mayor. Could I get a suggestion from the council? The options A, B or C. Councillor Dewhurst?
I'll just go A.
A? Thank you. Would anybody like to speak on this? No? Okay, so option A is no change. If you're in support of option A, please raise your hand. So we have 2 against and 3 against, and yeah, if you could put your hand up again. So I'm against. Yep, 1, 2, 3. Yep, 3 against. Thank you. So that's carried. Just one moment. Thank you, councillors. I was just getting what we've decided on. So for 1, we've decided on A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 5 was a D, which was A, B and C, and 6 was an A. Can I go to the vote on accepting those? That's unanimously carried. Thank you. Thank you. So this will now bring us to our first planning item. So we've got item 13.2.1, development application, commercial vehicle parking, 9, lot 3, Limby Glades, Huntingdale. I seek a mover, Councillor Adams, and a seconder, Councillor Baines. Councillor Adams, would you like to speak to this item? Councillor Baines, Councillor Dewhurst.
Thank you. I just, it's not really, just a statement really. Condition number 4, the vehicle shall only operate the premise between the hours of 7 a.m, 7 p.m, Monday to Saturday, and between the hours of 9 a.m, 5 p.m, Sunday and public holidays. I find it a very difficult condition to say that you must do that, because what people do is they'll go and park the truck out on the road where they can legally park it for an hour or a couple of hours, and outside of those hours, and we can't do nothing about it. And what we're trying to do is get this guy to put his truck inside his property. I'm not saying I don't know this guy, I haven't spoken to him, don't know from a bar of soap, but I'm just finding that this condition actually is not a good condition to impose. I'm not saying we'll get rid of it, but just maybe we can think about it in the future, because so what people do is they'll just literally go park their truck out in the road, and then if they're a truck operator, lose 4 o'clock in the morning, they'll go move their truck out at 6:30 at night or 7 o'clock at night, park it out there and leave at 10 o'clock or 4 o'clock the next morning. So maybe something we should consider in the future, because this is about getting his vehicle on his property, not off his property. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. Would anybody else like to speak? Councillor Abetz.
Just a question. I thought a dual-wheeled vehicle, commercial vehicle, was not allowed to be parked on the road for more than 2 hours. Is that correct?
Over to Director Bradbrook.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. There is a limit on how long it can be. I think you are correct on 2 hours. I'm not 100% sure, but there is a limit. I guess the issue is at 10 o'clock at night, who's coming out to check on it, because we don't have rangers on duty.
Thank you. Are there any further questions or debate on this item? No? Councillor Adams, would you like to close? No? Okay, we will go to the vote. If you're in support of the staff recommendation, please raise your hand. So that's unanimously carried. Thank you. Okay, the next item is item 13.2.2, disposal of lot 132 Comrie Road, Canning Vale. May I seek a mover? Councillor Good, and seconder Councillor Dewhurst. Councillor Good, would you like to speak to this item? Councillor Dewhurst.
This is at last. So I'm well aware that the residents around there will be very happy of this, because the amount of problems with squatters and other unwanted people on the premises.
Sorry, Councillor Dewhurst, we're just discussing the Canning Vale item rather than Huntingdale.
Oh, sorry.
So you might want to save it.
I've just got Dawson Creek coming up later on. I just want to get out of here. So. Oh, we are too, sorry.
Yeah. Would anybody like to discuss this item? No? Councillor Good, would you like to close? No? Okay, we will go to the vote. If you're in support of this, please raise your hand. That's unanimously carried. Thank you. Okay, so item 13.3.1, which is the budget variation, Sutherland's Park Reserve F Sports Lighting. May I seek a mover? Councillor Dewhurst, a seconder, Councillor McDonald. Councillor Dewhurst, Councillor McDonald. Would anybody else like to speak on the item? No. We'll go to the vote, so please raise your hand if you're in support. That's unanimously carried. Thank you. Okay, so now we get to item 13.3.2, the budget variation, demolition of property 23 Brushbox Way, Huntingdale. Can I seek a mover? Councillor Dewhurst. And a seconder, Councillor Baines. Councillor Dewhurst, would you like to speak to the motion?
I would just like to go ditto for the last one, so just what I said before. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Baines? No? Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? No? Okay, we'll go to the vote. If you're in support of the staff recommendation, please raise your hand. That's unanimously carried. Thank you. This now brings us to item 13.5.1, the proposed policy, international delegations. May I seek a mover? Councillor Adams, and a seconder, Councillor Islam. Councillor Adams, would you like to speak to the item? Councillor Islam, would you like to speak to the item? Councillor Dewhurst?
Thanks very much. Look, I have a procedural motion that I'd like to read out.
Yes, you may read it out.
Okay, that the item under consideration be deferred for the following reasons. Not all elected members responded to the survey seeking views on proposed amendments to the policy, and those that did were evenly split on a number of issues. If the proposed amendments can be discussed and explained at a workshop, it would allow all elected members to understand and express a view on each proposal to provide direction to staff in finalising the policy. I seek your support.
Can we seek a seconder? Councillor Good to second. There's no debate on this item, so we'll go straight to voting. If you're in support of the deferral, please raise your hand. So we have a unanimous support for the deferral. So that now brings us to item 13.5.2, the report on petition requesting amendments to the city's CAT local law. I seek a mover. Councillor Adams, and a seconder, Councillor Good. Councillor Adams, would you like to speak? No. Councillor Good, would you like to speak? Would anybody else like to speak? No. So we'll go to the vote. If you're in support of the recommendation, please raise your hand. That's unanimously carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 13.5.3, the tender 08/2024, construction of Langford Indoor Sports Centre. May I seek a mover? Councillor Dewhurst, and seconder, Councillor McDonald. Councillor Dewhurst, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thanks. It's really good to see this. My heart lies with the Netball Association over there. I had 3 daughters go through there, and one still plays there now. Actually, no, I've got 2 playing there now. Sorry. I just hope she's not watching now. But I mean, I also coached there for 8 years as well. Netball, and yeah, it's a great association. It's great, great course, great positions. Council does a wonderful job there, and just can't wait for this to actually occur. All the lights are all done now, and they've put all new stands up, and the courts have been done. It's just absolutely beautiful. So once we get this, it's going to be just absolutely amazing, and I thank the staff for all their hard work to get where we are, and also council for supporting it as well.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. Councillor McDonald, would anybody else like to speak to this item? Councillor Good.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Williamson. Yes, look, I concur with Councillor Dewhurst's comments. Great to see that's now going to happen. A reasonable price compared to what I was anticipating, a little over $13.15 million. A great investment for the whole area, for the city itself, and glad to hear that your own children have been playing through it and the effort you've put in coaching, etc. So a great investment. Again, well done to the staff, and particularly to put such great concept plans together, and I think it'll just be a great addition to the city. A big project, but nice for it to come to fruition, and hopefully the next 24 months or so when it's all done, it'll be great. So congratulations.
Thank you, Councillor Good. Would anybody else like to speak to the recommendation? No? Okay, we'll go to the vote for the staff recommendation. Please raise your hand in support, if you're in support. That's unanimously carried, thank you. That now brings us to item 13.5.4, the CEO Annual Performance Review. The CEO is just leaving the room as he's declared a direct financial interest in this item. Thank you. May I seek a mover, Councillor Abetz, and a seconder, Councillor McDonald. Would anybody like to speak to this item? Councillor Islam?
I've got a question to ask. I'm not sure the meeting needs to be confidential.
So this item's not to be confidential as it doesn't contain any confidential information if it contained financial.
I guess the question is very related to about this report. I guess I just want to know, and for the public record as well, just want to understand about the CEO's package in terms of salary and remuneration the city offers him.
I will refer that to Director Bradbrook.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Salaries for local government CEOs are determined by the State Administrative Tribunal, and Council is required to set salaries within the band defined by SAT. The CEO is remunerated at the top of the band for a Band 1 council. This report doesn't propose an increase to the CEO's salary.
Thank you, Director Bradbrook. Councillor Islam, have you got a further question? No? Councillor Abetz?
Just want to say, Madam Deputy Mayor, put on public record that I think we've got an excellent CEO, and I'm very appreciative of the work that he does, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of all the councillors that we're very appreciative of his work, and even though he's not hearing it, it's at least on the public record, and yeah, we certainly thankful that he is our CEO and hope stays the CEO for a long time yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abetz. Would anybody else like to speak to this item? No? Okay, so we'll now go to the vote. If you support staff recommendation as in the report, please raise your hand. Thank you. That's unanimously carried. Thank you. So the CEO can return to the room.
Point of order, Madam Deputy Mayor. What was the outcome of that vote for the record, please?
That was unanimously supported. All KPIs were accepted. Thank you. So that brings us to item 14, motions of which previous notice has been given and we have not received any. Item 15, urgent business, we do not have any. Item 16, confidential matters, we do not have any. And that brings us to a close at item 17 at 7:37. Thank you everyone for attending tonight. Thank you.